Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into Sunday FUNDAY, Week 11 of the 2024 SEC football season officially in the books. We have got a lot to discuss and a lot to break down, tons to react to here on this Sunday morning, November the 10th, 2024. I'm Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. Guys, before we get going, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get those. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And, of course, as always, we're brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the official sponsors of the SEC Unfiltered Tour. And at this point, the official sponsor of Field Stormings is essentially what Prize Picks is sponsoring. Again, head over to prizepicks.com, use promo code SECU. You're going to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. And, guys, don't forget, you can play college football, of course, but college basketball is in full swing, NFL, NBA, everything you can think of. You can cross over multiple sports as well. So, again, prizepicks.com, promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. Again, a wild and wacky Week 11. Few teams made statements. We had some upsets. We had a field storming. Again, I'm Chris Phillips. He's Dave Shumate. He is Cole Thompson. Fellas, what's going on? Appreciate y'all taking the time. Excited to break it all down with you.
CP, man, you're the magic man for these home teams and these big games, man. I'm telling you, Georgia may fly in this week to Athens. They need the big win. They're backed in the corner. Tennessee coming to town. Do not be shocked if Chris Phillips gets called from Josh Brooks, folks. The AD.
Well, that's Dave. That's quite ironic, isn't it? That's quite ironic that Georgia might call me to come into Athens, isn't it? Because spoiler, that's where we're headed next weekend. That'll be announced later today. But that's where we're headed. I mean, look at the schedule. It's a no-brainer. I feel like people could put two and two together. But the irony that you said that is indeed not lost on any of us.
College football's mad. College football is absolutely off the rails at this point. And unfortunately, for those that didn't embrace the 12-team playoff like yours truly, we kind of have to eat crow because this is fun. There's a lot of fun down the stretch to watch now. Potentially 7 teams finish 10-2. Who's going to get in? Who's going to be left out? What is going to be the race to the finish line? If you want a perfect eclipse of what is going to be the last month of college football, just turn on the fourth quarter of the Mizzou Oklahoma game. I promise you it is going to be as wacky, turbulent, and crazy as that every single Saturday from here on out.
Yeah, we're going to get to that one. The end of that game was absolutely nuts. Got a lot of feelings and thoughts that. But, guys, let's start with where I was at over the weekend, where I'm actually currently sitting in the great state of Mississippi. Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels finally got their signature win, right? We heard coming in the game, Lane can't win the big one. Ole Miss can't get over the hump, right? They wasted all this money on NIL and lost that game earlier in the year to Kentucky and lost at LSU. And this was the game that was going to make or break their 2024 season. And again, it was a huge game for Lane Kiffin from the standpoint, can you finally win the big game? Is your team going to look prepared? Guys, all those questions were answered. And to your point, by the way, Dave, it's kind of scary how used to storming the field I'm getting. To a point to when I go to a game and the field isn't stormed, I'm like, I thought this was just something you do at every game. I thought this was a normal thing. Guys, I've been part of field stormings. This was the first time I'd been part of a false alarm field storming. Because I was down there, because I sat.
You guys were down there with 30 seconds left in the game.
I was down there because I was sitting row 7. So I'm literally like 2 rows, which, by the way, it is a drop from the.
Every time they have a stat going, they have a stat in one of those bars. Every time they storm the field, even though someone breaks, they have the bone fracture. I mean,
you got to be like if you're 2 sheets to the wind, like you're. I was very careful getting down. It is a far drop. Either way, so I'm like 2 rows from that. So, like, people started flooding down there. I was like, well, let me get down there. You know what I mean? There's a minute left, but, like, let me just go ahead and get down there, be with the masses. So, yes, I was one of those. There were 16 seconds left, and I don't know, somebody up front was just like, game over, and everybody takes off, and they're shooing people off the – that was very wild. I got that on the vlog. That's really funny content. I've never been part of a false alarm field storming, but to storm the field again, I mean, obviously it was because of the day that was an incredible day for Ole Miss. I'm not going to lie, guys. I thought it was going to be kind of same old song and dance when first drive of the game, Jackson Dart throws the pick. Georgia goes down, they score. It's 7-0 before you can blink. It felt like a nightmare start. I'll tell you this, guys. I really thought, and a huge point in that game was Jackson Dart immediately goes to the locker room. I'm thinking to myself, boy, this could really get sideways. Like, who knows what's about to happen next? But you have the backup come in, and that next drive, Austin Stemmons, 5 of 6 for 64 yards, leads them right down the field. And guys, that was a representation of what the whole day was. I know we're going to talk about the defense. They were phenomenal, right? We asked the question, has Ole Miss done enough? You and I, Dave, we asked about this, and Cole too, but has Ole Miss done enough to make up the gap? Defensively, the answer is yes. They made up the gap and then some. They whipped Georgia's ass all night at the line of shot. They whooped them all night. I mean, it was Princely Uman-Mielen was out of this world. He didn't have a chance. He didn't have a chance. But Lane Kiffin ran circles around Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann, man. Dude, he was in his bag all night. He was cooking them left and right, slicing them and dicing them. This was like we've been waiting on Lane Kiffin. And again, I haven't seen the TV copy, so maybe the eye in the sky, y'all will have a different opinion. But sitting there watching the game, I'm like, Lane Kiffin is so far in his bag. And Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann are just, they don't have a chance. I mean, they just don't. And it wasn't like Ole Miss could run the football that well. I mean, it's spurts here and there. Ulysses Bentley had the rushing touchdown. But it was passing game. And it was Jackson Dart stepping up. I know he only threw for 199. They rushed for 134. I'm looking at the stats now. But and obviously threw for 263, the one drive with Austin Simmons. But dude, it was just a master class from Lane Kiffin and company on that side. But also, again, you got to go to the defense. That's the big thing that continued to when they needed them. Georgia, had 68 total yards of offense in the first half, guys. It was just the perfect storm, literally. We had rain all throughout the day. I got soaking wet at the game. So did everybody else. But it was just a magical day in Oxford, man. And the SEC Unfiltered tour just strikes again, man. We come out into these games.
That was a game, though. We're good. Give Pete Golden credit. It is what it is. I don't think they really just totally out-schemed them offensively. I'm with you, CP. Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss called it a phenomenal game. But this is what you paid the $12 million for the roster, for the Walter Nolans, the Prince of Uman-Milans, Centurion Perkins of the world. I know you signed him out of high school, but still, it's one of the best linebackers out of high school, came down to Alabama and Ole Miss. But this is what you pay those guys for, to go win their one-on-one matchups. And they did that at a very consistent rate yesterday. I mean, Ernest Green, that kid's he's confuzzled right now. Princely U was doing whatever the hell he wanted to do against him. You're right. Overall, Ole Miss pressed all the right buttons. I thought you made a good point. Me and Cole talked about it on the reaction. Chris bringing up next man up mentality with Austin Simmons, who, CP, for the sake of baseball arguments, fighting to get in that weekend rotation for him this year. He's the
fan base is excied about Austin Simmons.
Yeah.
Some teams, the backup quarterback comes in, you're kind of like, oh, I don't know. There was at times where they were like, man, put Simmons back in. Like, I mean, this dude's a stud. Like, you
could see it on social media too. They were freaking out. They're like, no, why are we getting away?
This is going to start having real conversations of, am I playing baseball in the spring? Or am I going to be with the two football teams? I mean, he's going to be lined up.
Depending, like if you're a midweek guy, you may just want to focus on football.
He's a middle reliever. He comes in middle.
Okay.
He's not a midweek guy. He's a middle reliever. Yeah. No, but overall, great athlete. Loved his film out of high school coming down from Florida. But overall, I mean, got to give it. Ole Miss wasn't great coming to this game in the run game offensively. They were solid enough. It wasn't they just took over the game. But you're right. I mean, Jackson Dart came back. Cole's guy, Big Dart, NATO stepping up. They didn't have Trey Harris. Juice Wells made some plays.
Dude, that snap.
All your guys you paid played really well yesterday. So that was kind of like, my God, if you're an Ole Miss fan and you've only, again, we talked about it all year. All of us, I think, at some point, to our credit, even after the LSU game, gave Ole Miss credit, being like, dude, they're a little underrated, dude. They're kind of forgotten about because they play Oklahoma and they've had a bye week mixed in. It's like, everybody's down on them. It's kind of like, hold up now. They've only trailed for 2 game time minutes this year against LSU and Kentucky. Barely. I mean, so they haven't really trailed a lot, but again, they hadn't put it all together until these last 2 weeks against Arkansas and Georgia. This is what you pay for this. You pay for it. Give Walker Jones, give that Grove Collective credit, give Lane Kiffin credit, Austin Thomas, who's now at LSU, give him credit for building this roster. This is what Ole Miss fans are like, yes, this is why we love this new era of college football, because of this. We essentially we paid for this win with the players we have on the field. That's the way college football is right now. But you're right too, Chris. Give Lane Kiffin Charlie West Jr. offensively, their credit, just big time win in Oxford. That's the biggest win they've had there since 2014 Alabama.
Cole, to segue, I'm going to let you go, but I know you're going to go with Dartnado. So to segue into that, the moment I knew, I was like, Jackson Dart's not losing this football game. When he put his shoulder down and said, "Come get you some, bitch!" Like, come get some. Like, he didn't even think about going out of bounds. When he put that shoulder down, I was like, this dude's out for blood. Like, he's I was. I already had respect for Jackson Dart, but like a play like that is where, like, dude, your teammates are gonna die for you. Like your quarterback is putting the shoulder down. Like I just at that moment I was like, there is no shot Ole Miss loses this game. None. Absolutely none.
We're retiring Dartnado, guys. I've made it abundantly clear. We are going to retire the name Dartnado. It was a good run. We appreciate it because I found something better.
This is news to me. So.
I found something better. We have to embrace Darth Vader, because if he embraces the Anakin Skywalker.
Wait, hold on. Wait. We got to do
He embraces the Anakin Skywalker.
It is now Darth Vader for the rest of the year. We got to win out. Listen, you got to go back. Dave, the thing that you said was really important here. They only trailed for 2 minutes this entire season. They only trailed for 2 minutes against Kentucky because they trailed for 0 seconds and 0 minutes in that LSU game. One play. That was it. That's the only time they trailed, was in the Kentucky game. And now people forgot about them. But I told you guys on Tuesday, there's a tweet, I can prove it, said the most dangerous 2-loss team in the country is Ole Miss. Why is that? Well, plain and simple. What do you have to lose? Their season was yesterday. They win, they still are in the college football playoff hunt. Now they got to make sure that they don't fumble the bag against Florida, against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. But they win. They're in the college football playoff hunt. They would have a signature victory and one of the best losses, which, again, it's not that good of a deal, but still, overtime loss in Death Valley at night against LSU. You can go ahead and kind of use that to your advantage, which, by the way,
we can say, though, objectively, they have a really bad loss, too.
They do, but at the same time, I think
I was watching yesterday. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know how this team lost in Kentucky.
But at the same time, you could say they have a great win, a signature win, and
one. But if you're going to call out their solid loss, you got to call it the bad win,
right? But I can also, but when you look at what this team is, there's no shot that you can keep them out if they play the way that they looked yesterday. Because of the storyline wasn't Jackson Darth Vader. The storyline wasn't the offensive personnel. The storyline was this is an Georgia offensive line that we have been talking about this entire year of being the backbone for this team. This is a Georgia offensive line that we've talked about being a standard down in Athens. And in a year where really you look at the underwhelming play of offensive execution, especially with the front five, you figured that this would be one of the biggest assets. It was at fault. I don't even blame Carson Beck entirely or Nate Frazier or Trevor Etienne for not having avenues to get into the open field because of Ole Miss's defensive line bullied the crap for 4 straight quarters against Georgia's front five. Yeah. They absolutely dismantled.
That was the most dominant I've seen a Georgia team in their prime since 17 be dominated, even in losses to Alabama.
They were awful. I mean, it was everything. And it's not just sacks. People always want to look at the sack numbers and say, well, that's fine. 3 sacks in the day. Okay, you'll take that. It's 8 tackles for losses. It's 14 quarterback pressures.
Even those perimeter screens and shit were getting blown up every time.
It's 29 plays behind the line.
Think about that, Chris. What you just said. That's what Georgia's really usually good at. Block destruction. They come in like kamikazes, breaking that crap.
Typically, they're bullying you on the perimeter,
and they couldn't do it.
Guys, even the touchdown that they got spotted on they had to 4th and goal. It took everything to get in with a short field.
The other part that I thought was really important was when they turned to Austin Simmons just for that one drive. They didn't know that you were going to see Jackson Dart come back in the game. The defense said, okay, we got to give our offense as many opportunities as possible to score. We got to force a lot of 3 and outs. We got to put pressure. After the Nate Frazier touchdown, they got back in their bag. They got back in their element. Everyone delivered. And again, this is the new era of college football where your rankings in the recruiting are almost a little bit less if you feel good about your transfer portal rankings. Your portal rankings for other teams that are at the lesser tier commodities that won't land 5 stars left and right, that may be lucky to get 2 4 stars and a handful of 3 stars. Your overall version has to be able to win with the transfer portal. And Lane Kiffin's proven that. And there's a lot of teams that are going to look at how they played yesterday with the type of talent that they brought in and say, if we have a good foundation with veterans back here, we can utilize this to our advantage and do the exact same thing. Go in the portal, land a couple of 4 stars, a couple of former blue chip recruits, bring them in, and go big this year. Because it works. Lane Kiffin just proved to everybody yesterday, this can work. But you have to have a foundation in place. The part that was really important was also the guys that you want to see step up, guys who had been there, people who you didn't think were going to have major roles played a big time role. Caden Lee has been one of the more undervalued players in the SEC this year because if he has been working across the middle of the field since Trey Harris has been out. Jordan Watkins stepping on up as the new wide receiver 1 with Trey Harris being out. Juice Wells, we had been waiting for that moment. Him to finally show his stuff about being what is the number 2 receiver. Bobble catch, doesn't matter. 2 feet in bounds. That's an NFL touchdown. Nobody's going to be complaining about that. Everyone delivered. Everyone executed. Jackson Dart Vader, as I'm going to call him from here on out, the man led the team in rushing. He finished with over 265 yards of offense. He's putting up the stat line to at least get in the conversation for maybe an invite to New York City. And they're 2 games away from going to the college football playoff. I'm going to make this clear right now. And I may be alone on this take, and it may be, again, recency bias. But I said back when everyone wanted to sell their stock on Ole Miss after 2 losses, I'll buy it. Because when they play their brand of football to a T, they truly may be the most dangerous roster in the SEC.
In their schedule. I mean, you got to look at this. It wasn't just them to me. It was their schedule was beneficial. Again, does anyone get a better bye week than them on the schedule?
No.
It's this week.
Hey, can I make a crazy argument, guys? Because I genuinely, before the season, and maybe this is a conversation more so for Tuesday when the rankings come out, I genuinely thought before the season, though, there was a world where Ole Miss could go 10-2. But if they lost to LSU and Georgia, like if they lost their 2 kind of signature games on their schedule, you could be like, well, I mean, what really is their greatest win? Could I argue I know it sounds crazy right now. Like if they'd have beat Kentucky and they'd have been 11-1, that'd have been better. But I'm like, I don't know. If you were going to lose one, it's almost better you lost to Kentucky. Because
I think so.
If you'd have beat Kentucky, we'd have been like, who cares? We'd have thrown it out. We'd have thrown it out.
The committee values the better win.
That's what I'm saying. It almost worked out to where it's like, well, I mean, at this point, you would have traded a loss to Kentucky.
You'd
have rather lost to Kentucky than lost to Georgia.
You could say the same thing about Alabama. Would you rather have the Vandy win or the Georgia win?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So, it's again, maybe that's more of a conversation for Tuesday when the rankings come out. But
the other thing real fast I just want to throw out there is that sometimes stick to your gut, ladies and gentlemen, because if yours truly said at the start of the year, the only loss that Ole Miss was going to have was to LSU on the road. And people called me crazy. And people said, oh, no. Did you see this Ole Miss team, the way that they played against Kentucky, the way they played and gave up big-time explosive outlooks to Garrett Nussmeier and Aaron Anderson? Okay, cool. They're still going to beat Georgia. Sometimes trust your gut. It may tell you that you're going in the right direction. Trust your gut. And guess what? Now everyone has to jump back on the Ole Miss hype train about going to the college football playoff because let's just call a spade a spade. 10-2 Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, Dart Vader, what this offense looks like, fully healthy, another bye week to get back a probably Trey Harris. You're not leaving them out. There's no way you can justifiably say an overtime loss to LSU, a 3-point loss to Kentucky, and a win over a top 3 Georgia squad is not good enough to be at least a number 11.
I think the South Carolina win's starting to look better for teams too.
It's looking so much better. And by the way,
way better. Especially the way they won that game.
By the way, that's the only game so far this year that South Carolina has not been in. And then they dominated that performance. So that makes you look even that much better because they were in the Alabama game. They were in the LSU game. You couldn't say anything. They were down 14-0. That just shows you what Ole Miss is. And I think that win against also Arkansas, the dismantling of them, if that ages well, because if you watch Arkansas close out the year on a hot streak, that might benefit them too. And by the way, congratulations to Chris for being there on one of what I would call the greatest game day atmospheres in college football. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have an opportunity to go to the Magnolia State and get to spend a weekend in Oxford, I highly recommend it. Yeah. You will understand what is the beauty of college football at its finest. The Rebels, They're kind folk. More importantly, they love the show. We got to give them a huge shout out. And I want to make sure I give a huge
are you a fan of Walt Hemingway? You were putting him lower the rankings the other day.
I never said anything about the Grove. Never said anything about the Grove.
Yeah,
the atmosphere.
To Cole's point, firsthand experience, and again, we could spend this entire show just praising the weekend and praising the fine folks of Oxford. Cole, to your point, because it was incredible. Obviously, my first time spending any time in Oxford, Mississippi, the Grove, any of it, and I say this a lot, but it is true, and I'll echo it again, and it's so true for this past weekend. Like, the people are what make the experiences special.
Yeah.
The venues are awesome, obviously. Like, they're all unique in their own way.
It's all underrated now.
I've never seen anything like the Grove in my life. I've never seen so many tents crammed into one place. I also went to the Circle, which is right up the way from the Grove, which was really fun. But the people were incredible. The hospitality was awesome. Went to the Square obviously Friday night, and I didn't mess with it last night because I knew it would be a complete madhouse. But man, the people were awesome. We had so many folks show us love. Again, the hospitality. You're not going to walk around there too long without a beverage or food in your belly. That's for sure. They make sure of that.
They're going to also treat you with 100% respect,
for sure.
Which I love.
It was awesome. And then to your point, man, the vault. I was telling you this. I was telling you this off the air, Dave.
It's not a bad seat in the place. Dude.
Yeah, I had a great seat, man. Like I said, I was row 7. I made sure to have a good view, and I was right next to the student section, which was a blast. But I've been really fortunate to see a lot of these venues at what I feel like is their very best. And I mean, Vaught Hemingway was a factor. It was a factor last night. It was. So shout out to the fine folks of Oxford. Shout out to all the folks at Ole Miss that showed us love. And,
I just want them to upgrade the facility. That's it. And you know what, Link?
I wouldn't mind them throwing a little Ole Miss logo on the outside of the facility or two. But I mean, outside of that, it's
Lane Kiffin, when you go into conversations with Keith Carter this offseason for your extension that you've probably earned after this win, make sure that you also add in some necessary adjustments and upgrades to the facility. That's all I'm asking for, because it can be a great stadium. It can be one of the best stadiums in college football.
The vlog is going to be electric, guys. I'll tell you that. A lot of great content, a lot of great footage. Of course, you've probably seen the picture at this point. Yours truly was on the field, rushing the field. It's, I have to pinch myself. It's surreal, man. It's truly surreal. Last thing on the game, guys, because we could go on and on about this one. We talked about the physicality of the defense. Dude, the way Pooh Paul Jr. and Daughtery fly around at linebacker is really fun. They play with a mean streak. And then I tell you, man, for Georgia, to your point, Cole, it's easy to put it all, on Carson Beck, and I'm not super high on him. Dude, I almost feel bad for him at this point because, you go to social media.
It was a horrible
bro, you go to social media, he is getting cooked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
it is so much. You watch them, and we keep saying it, but they just don't have those big playmakers they had last year. You're like,
no,
to the point, the offensive line's what got whipped. That's what destroyed everything. But you're like, who's the game breaker at running back? Like, who's the receiver? You're like, let's turn to that guy. Like,
it goes back to what we talked about. Don't have up at running back, and then the loss of Ra Thomas and Colby Young hurt. Yeah. I mean, those are playmakers who make one-on-one big plays, and that's not about scheme. It's just my guy beat your guy.
Yeah.
So they really do miss those guys, and they obviously miss Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. But I think we all knew that. We just didn't probably
the severity. We just didn't know the severity of it.
Like, you even saw them when they were limited last year in the SEC championship game. Like, Carson Beck was kind of a little lost. So just no one's ever stepped up for them. And again, some of it's injuries, some of it's guys just being dismissed from the football team. Running backs is definitely an injury thing. I don't know, just the offense, though, is just not there. They didn't have Ben Urasek hadn't stepped up, Oscar Dell, Boston Lucky. They've all just kind of been okay. And it just feels like the offense right now, it's like when Carson Beck does deliver a good ball, someone drops it. Or when he doesn't deliver good balls at times. Or Ernest Green's just getting whipped all day. It's just – you can't win a lot. You give it to Nate Frazier, and we see why he didn't play for 3 or 4 straight weeks.
Yeah.
You always heard he was fumbling in practice. Goes out there and has 2 big fumbles, dude. Ole Miss cooked up the generic how to lose a game on the road in the SEC, dude. You get outrushed, you get dominated on the line of scrimmage, and you lose a turnover battle.
Like you always say, Dave, this thing ain't all that complicated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you do certain things on the road in the SEC.
2=4.
I mean, even Kirby, I think in the post game acknowledged that. He's just like, "Welcome to the SEC, baby." Like he literally said that
when we did tonight. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he was surprised they lost.
On the line of scrimmage on both sides, and you can't have the turnovers. I mean, that's how you're going to get beat.
Yeah. Here's the beauty, guys. next week is an elimination game for Georgia, and it's going to be. And here's the best part: if they win, you still feel like they're probably in. They close out the year with Georgia Tech and UMass. But I'll tell you what, you're going to figure out exactly who Georgia is with their back against the wall in their backyard against a Tennessee team that realizes they have got to step on up and deliver because they have never had a shot like this to dismantle Georgia.
Everybody has had this opportunity this year outside of LSU last week, but I will say Alabama came in more desperate team. I say the desperate team at home with their backs against the wall. Because again, I mean, I think Tennessee probably needs to win this more than people were kind of leaning.
They do. They 100% do.
Outside of Alabama, Tennessee doesn't have a great win, but it's not must win for Tennessee. It's must win for Georgia because Georgia ain't getting in at 9-3. To Cole's point, opportunity, your back's against the wall. Ole Miss just did it to you. LSU did it to Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. A lot of these teams in college football this year, the teams that need it, that are the most desperate at home in big games, came out on top.
A rabid dog that's sitting in the corner is the most dangerous animal that ever existed. That's what you're going to get down in Athens on Saturday.
That's what your Dotson told us last night, Cole.
Indeed. Guys, that being said, let's move to, you mentioned the Alabama Crimson Tide. So Cole and I just spent some time kind of maybe patting ourselves in the back a little bit. You know, we both picked Ole Miss, felt good about it. That being said, as we move to this game that took place in Baton Rouge between Alabama and LSU, let me be the first to honk, honk. That is being my clown nose because I gave the most, what turned out to be the most, probably the most clownish take of all. I even had, for those that missed it on Instagram, Alabama offensive lineman Tyler Booker reposted the clip on his story, said, cold take, buddy. And, yeah. So we actually
you did the classic Pat Dye 03.
We DM'd.
They weren't man enough to win it.
Yeah, we DM'd back and forth after the fact. He's super cool. He was like, hey, he's like, no hard feelings. Dude, I'm like, hey man, this is the business we're in, man. He's super cool guy. I actually followed SEC Unfiltered, so shout out Tyler Booker, man.
I'll take that as a win.
Really, yeah, exactly. That's something good came of it, right? But yeah, safe to say my DMs on Instagram are a bit of a mess right now with Bama fans chirping me, which is. I mean, listen, it's fine. All love to the folks in Tuscaloosa. Would expect nothing less. But, guys, if you told me Bama won this game, I wouldn't have said you were crazy, obviously. But to win it 42-13 and just this game was felt like never in doubt. I mean, just start to finish. Jalen Milroe owns the LSU Tigers. He owns them. Just flat out owns them. 12 carries, 185. 4 touchdowns. Guys, it was almost like really what it was, all the issues we saw LSU had against Texas A&M, it was that times like 100. You know what I mean? They couldn't protect Garrett Nussmeier consistently when they couldn't. He made mistakes. He had that big fumble in the game.
Great play, by the way.
Yeah, great play. They can't run the football, which is not a shocker. And, again, give all the credit in the world to Alabama, man, a team that so many of us, or at least some of us, I guess, were ready to say – they're down, they're out. You know, this team has looked like shit. They're not going to be in the playoff. They're going to get knocked out. And here we are, guys, in the middle of November. Not to sound like I'm depressed about it. My pick is really still hurting me. But here we are, middle of November, and Alabama's right in the thick of the college football playoff discussion with another big win in Baton Rouge. I mean, it's just, listen, Death Valley at night, tough place to play. Not for Alabama. It's not for Alabama.
It's not even a nit. I saw Jacob Hester, one of my favorite all-time SEC players, but he is for sure wrong on this. He said it was just a Nick Saban thing. He obviously didn't do his homework. You go back since 1970, Alabama's only lost every. Hell, Nick Saban couldn't beat Alabama when he was the head coach at LSU. He lost one time to Dennis Franchione. They got into it at the middle of the field. But Alabama doesn't really lose there. And again, I think that's an overrated stat because, again, nobody on the team in 1972 has anything to do with the team that played last night on either team. So it's kind of overrated. It's just Tiger Stadium gets hyped up a lot, as it should. But to Alabama, traditionally, it hasn't really mattered. But last night, yeah, Kalen DeBoer in big games. Again, like you've seen what his record is against Dan Lanning, 3-0. See what his record is against Steve Sarkisian, 2-0. The guy,
Kirby Smart 1-0.
What?
Kirby Smart 1-0.
Yeah, Kirby Smart 1-0. 1-0 against Brian Kelly. Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan are two of the best game planners, offensive scripters in the sport. You see, they come out hot every game with an initial game plan. Now,
and they had 2 weeks. Same thing as Georgia. They had 2 weeks. Like
to the other side of that, where I'm pissed off a little bit if I'm an LSU fan, it's like, my God, defensively, dude. Marcel Reed at Texas A&M literally just did this to us, and you had 2 weeks to prepare.
You made the point, though, Dave. You made the point when we went live on Instagram on Friday night. A guy you miss in a spot like this is Harold Perkins.
Dude,
they did not have an athlete to keep up with him.
They're better without him recently. I think
except for this game.
They're better, but specifically for this game, him and Jalen Milroe are their two best athletes when they're on the field. All due respect, Weeks has been playing really well this year. Stepped up, has improved tremendously. Give Blake Baker some credit as well. They didn't have an athlete at the second level in Greg Penn or Whit Weeks to keep up with Jalen Milroe. Harold Perkins could have been hey, dude, you're just spy tonight. He would have fit that role perfectly. But no, I mean, to give Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan, hell, Kane Womack. I mean, again, we're going to talk about Jalen Milroe having 8 touchdowns against LSU the last 2 years, which is true. Kane Womack and that defense were this close to going in back-to-back SEC games without giving up a touchdown. Granted, one of them was context.
And by the way, the quote that Brian Kelly had in postgame, he said that last touchdown, man, it really showed our kids didn't stop fighting. It's 42-6. Who gives a shit? Like, that was I don't want to make too much of it, but I was just like, he did not. Like, did he really say that? Anyways, continue.
Brian Kelly lost a lot of momentum. So
that was crazy.
I'm going to piggyback off you. He lost some momentum with that LSU fan base last night.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, you mentioned it. I think everybody walked into that game being like, I don't know, I could see a path to victory for both these teams easily. And I think no one, unless they're just lying, would have projected Alabama to win this game 42-13 or it should have been 42-6. Like, no one predicted that, and it was over at half. Mm-hmm. For you to go lose like that at home, the whole game you circle back in a couple of years if they're making a change, maybe with Scott Woodward too, and with Brian Kelly, because again, Scott Woodward struggled hiring football coaches recently.
Cole, I want to get to
him and Brian Kelly so far at LSU.
I want to get to Cole really quick. The whole week felt weird, guys, with the live Tiger thing. Like, it felt like a weird week. Like that, there was so much like. You know, I talked to our good buddy Blake Ruffino, AYS Sports, who's like boots on the ground, very tied in, right? And people that are tied in like that, we don't hear all the things, see all the things they do. Like, that was a really hot button issue. The live Tiger on the sideline, and like there was a lot of inner fan base bickering. And you're like, it felt like a weird vibe going in. It's a state
that's already losing major debt, and you're spending money buying a fucking
Tiger. Right. Yeah, and I don't want to go down that road because it is like a serious issue, but. I don't know. The week felt weird. Cole, please, sir, I'm sure you want to give me a good tongue lashing. We got 2 Bama boys that I know would love to give me a tongue lashing here about this game.
I don't want to give you a tongue lashing. I just I want everybody to go back and watch a preview. Just do me a favor, go back and watch a preview, because sometimes people will say, "You guys have no idea what you're talking about. You guys."
Cole had to clip that thing.
You guys don't know anything about the game of football. You guys are losers and don't know the sport. I said there was going to be 2 things that need to happen in this game. Number 1, Jalen Milroe had to have a Heisman-type moment. And number 2, whoever was the more physical team up front running the football, because that has been the standard of this game every single time that they play each other. It has not changed anytime soon. It was never going to change anytime. Win with physicality between the trenches. Whichever team did, they were going to walk away a winner. Let's see. Alabama finished with 311 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per run, and 6 touchdowns. LSU had 104 and 4.3. I also said new coach, same standard. New coach, same standard. That is 100% was always going to be the case, because there are some things about college football that make no sense and some things that just are right staring you in the face, and you got to embrace it. When Les Miles said, "This is Death Valley, a place where dreams truly come to die," right on the die, there's an asterisk. And when you click on it, it says, "Except for Alabama, because they own our ass out in Death Valley." It happens every single year. They're 7-1 since 2010. They have 1 loss. It was an overtime loss in the first year. And Jaden Daniels.
5 times since 1970. That's the
5 times since 1970. But it's one time.
Could have won games as the head coach in Alabama during that time.
But it's one time, and it was Jaden Daniels' start to his Heisman campaign. That was where the trajectory for number 5 winning the trophy last year came. That was it. Outside of that, they dominated. And the beauty about this was so many people sold their stock. So many people want to give up on Kalen DeBoer. Guy works out in the West Coast. Ain't gonna work down here in Southern football. How dare you think that you can lose to Vanderbilt and save your season? How dare you think that you can play upset football against South Carolina? A South Carolina team that's showing you right now they're pretty decent. A Vanderbilt team that's showing you they're pretty decent. How dare you lose the third Saturday in October? You know, the same third Saturday in October that Nick Saban lost the last time he went to Knoxville. That's what it is. Because of, why would you give up the stock on a guy that has proven everywhere he has been he can win, and he can win with the finest coaches in college football? Dave mentioned this, 3-0 against Dan Lanning. He's 2-0 against Lincoln Riley. Also, let's throw in the fact that he is 1-0 against Lane Kiffin. I mean, against Kirby Smart. He is 2-0 against Steve Sarkisian. And now he's 1-0 against Brian Kelly. Some of the highest paid coaches, some of the most dominant coaches, some of the more focal figures in this sport today. And he still finds a way to win. Bama yesterday needed to find a way to get their best punch forward. Was the vertical passing game there? Absolutely not. It wasn't. You got to see more from, I think, Ryan Williams. You got to see more from Jeremy Bernard. You got to see more of the consistency from what you can get in Jalen Milroe. I get it, because there are going to be matchups to where that has to be prevalent, especially when you go to the college football playoff, if you can continue to go to the college football playoff. But when you look right now, if you tell me that I'm getting 85 yards, 90 yards on the ground from Jalen Milroe and this rushing attack, plus 185 yards passing and 1 touchdown through the air, I'll take that. I'll take that. If I get this performance of the defense moving forward, I'll take that. I'll look at everything that we have seen this season from Alabama at their peak. They're right there alongside Ole Miss. They're right there alongside Texas. They're right there. They've surpassed Georgia because they've won that game in the head-to-head. The only bad performance that we have seen this year, truly, I think, from Alabama, was the second half against Tennessee. Because Tennessee won that game. Tennessee found a way to come back, and Jalen Milroe had multiple interceptions, and it was a bad offensive execution. But getting to the bye week, fully healthy, getting into a week of preparation, you got to give a lot of credit to what this team has been. And more importantly, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Kalen DeBoer getting his team prepared. Because the one team...
Vanderbilt wasn't a good game, Cole. It's like they played well and lost.
No, but I do think that, again, we got to give Vanderbilt a lot more credit for what they have.
They at least did play well offensively. They weren't totally
terrible.
Outside of the pick six, that was a bad ball up in the air.
Right,
which again, we saw that happen to Texas a few weeks ago.
I'm talking about the defensively.
Defensively, they're bad.
Offensively, they made some played enough.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't think Jalen Milroe played bad. I'm saying defensively,
but still,
as bad as great as Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson played last night, it was bad against Vanderbilt. And again, Alabama was kind of your first experimental guinea pig to go up against that Vanderbilt offense from the league a little bit.
But if this is the version that you get of Alabama, they're going to be one of the toughest outs in the college football playoff, and they're going to be one of the most dangerous teams if they get hot. Now, again, everything has to be what we saw last night. Everything has to be what we saw last night. And we got to get more in the passing attack. The vertical game has got to be better. But if you get that and you promise me that I'm getting 90 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown through the air, and probably a very solid overall execution on defense, it will be a 4-quarter battle, whether they play on the road, whether they play at home, whether they're in a neutral site game, it doesn't matter. And Alabama at this point, they're right back in the driver's seat to be in the college football playoff. 3 more games: Mercer, Oklahoma on the road, Auburn at home. You win those 3, you're in the dance. No one is going to doubt you about that second guess. And then I
played a team with a losing record.
And I also really want to just go fast because I know that we have to bring this up. For LSU, and you guys have mentioned this, but for LSU, I'm pissed this morning. I'm pissed because of, on all 3 stages of the game, everywhere. You can blame the defense. I get it. Terrible performance, especially in the open field. And you had a test. You had a litmus test the week before, or 2 weeks before, and a bye week against Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed has shown you his inability at times to throw the football. Absolutely has shown you his inability at times to connect downfield. Jalen Milroe can. You had a game plan on how to figure out how to play against this type of quarterback, and you didn't show up. But the offensive game plan wasn't that good either. It was dreadful at times, and there was so much more that we saw from the pass communication. The Deontay Lawson interception in the red zone, inexcusable. Just completely inexcusable for my money. Because if that is a play that you need to capitalize, momentum can shift into your value. You can easily have that, but they didn't show up at all, and they had 2 weeks to prepare. I think that's the more infuriating part. This has been a game for years on end in the SEC where the conference knows what the value of this matchup is. It is the unwritten rivalry of all unwritten rivalries. People know that they will wake up and choose violence in Baton Rouge or Tuscaloosa when these two go to war. But one team looked like they actually prepared. They were mentally involved. They didn't fundamentally shoot themselves in the foot. And the other team just showed up and said, hey, it's Death Valley. Hey, it's Death Valley at night. That's good enough for us. The fan base is going to be ravenous. They're going to control the tempo. They're going to make sure that we have their back. They're going to make sure that we have the thunderous roar, and they're going to force themselves into making mistakes. And it works against an Ole Miss. It works against South Carolina. It works against Georgia potentially. It doesn't work against Alabama. 5 losses in 50 years. What are you saying to yourself at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say a little bit more than that. I've said it all year. LSU has personnel issues, folks. And it shows up. Again, I know, Cole, you say you would take good coaching over more talented players. Me and you did agree to disagree on that. In this league, to win championships, you have to have the best players. I mean, look at the school we're talking about. Ed Orgeron, Les Miles. I mean, the last 3 head coaches at LSU have won national championships. So to my point, I would take a more talented team.
At some point, you will get exposed if you don't have.
Correct. So and that's not me calling out Cole. I just know Cole's like, I'll take a more coaching, a talented, or more a less talented team that's going to get coached up. At some point, you're going to get.
Go ahead, but what I'm trying to say is the game against South Carolina, you were able to come back after being down 17-0. That's because of coaching. The game against Ole Miss, you were able to come back because of coaching. In a game against Alabama, it's impossible to say. I 100% agree with you. This is a game where you will get exposed.
No, I just think their personnel, this is where they, on defense, you could have ran on them, I think, all year. No one just committed to it. And Alabama was the best offensive line they play. If you stayed committed to it and give Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan credit, they did. And that was a phenomenal game plan, them coming into it. I mean, before we get out of here, move games. Thoughts on Brian Kelly?
Well, that's what I was about to go to, guys, is we were talking about Lane Kiffin and his lack of ability to win the big game until yesterday. I mean, this is a Brian Kelly special if you followed him long enough. I mean, you talk about a coach that struggles to win the big game. I mean, that's why this game, that's why the Ole Miss game, that's why all these big games have been so important for Kelly, because as soon as he loses one, you know what the Sunday morning headline is going to be. You know what the chatter is going to be going into the week of all the talking heads and the podcasts and et cetera. And even folks like us, it's just Brian Kelly's never been able to get over that hump. Yeah. And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, talking to the folks down there, 9-3 gets you fired at LSU. Yeah. So if he goes 9-3 this year, 9-3 next year,
he's not going to get fired.
Look, I have my opinion on Brian Kelly, but I don't think he doesn't win. I mean, he beat Bama 2 years ago. He beat a good Ole Miss team this year. I wouldn't say he can't win a big game. I don't go that far with it. I just think BK is what he is, dude. And again, I say that with people want to say you want to get rid of the guy. Who are you going to get unless you can go outpay Phil Knight?
His buyout's also $70 million. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. They're not getting. He's going to be consistently an 8-4, 10-2, dude. Who else are you going to go get? It's going to guarantee you that year to year right now. I know people always want this immediate change, but it's like, dude, who are you going to go get? I mean, the only thing Scott Woodward may go do is go break the bank when Phil Knight dies and go pay Dan Lanning to come back to the Southeast.
Yeah, listen, they had what I was told. They had 300 recruits or so at that game yesterday, including Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country.
That'll be key. Chris, your point, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The thing is, this will be key here to note. If they lose Bryce Underwood to Michigan and they came into the season saying, hey, we didn't spend a lot of money in the portal defensively because we're sending that money to him, and he ends up going to Michigan, and they're looking like, well, we didn't get that kid, and we could have got some better kids out of the portal and spent more money instead of playing a true freshman in the defensive tackle spot in the SEC. What the hell happened, guys? If we're this confident, we're not going to go, because that's what happened there from talking.
They just
invested that money in Bryce Underwood. If he doesn't go because of our boy Dave Portnoy paying for his NIL deal at Michigan, if he doesn't go to LSU fans are going to be sitting there like, so we didn't pay for better talent heading into 2020. Again, Brian Kelly has made a lot of bad defensive personnel decisions that unless you really follow the program, you really wouldn't know.
Yeah, they've got to, again, go out there and upgrade defensive personnel and get a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over. I mean, that's the 2 biggest issues, I think. I mean, LSU fans and their relationship with Garrett Nussmeier is – you talk about a relationship that's very frayed right now. They are – I don't know. It's very mixed emotions with Nuss, and I don't blame him. He's incredibly frustrating. I mean, at times he's great. At times he's just turning the football over. It's incredibly frustrating to watch.
Here's the deal. They're going to go 10-3 this year because they're going to go 9-3 on the season. They'll close out the year with wins over Vanderbilt probably, unless Vanderbilt does wake up and have the performance of a lifetime against this offense, they're going to wake up. They're going to get a win over Oklahoma. They'll be fine in that. And then they'll go to a bowl game and they'll be 10-3. They'll be 10-3 like they were 10-4 2 years ago, and they were 10-3 last year. Here's the difference, guys. 10-3 in years past, you can survive with because of only one team from the SEC goes to the college football playoff. Only one is there. It's Alabama, it's Georgia, maybe it's now Texas. They'll be fine. No problem whatsoever. We're okay with that. But now there's 4 teams going to the SEC, from the SEC going to the playoff. There's potentially 5 teams going to the SEC from the playoff. And you're not one of them. And this was a year where you were able to get signature wins over South Carolina, over Ole Miss, but you lost in emphatic fashion despite leading against Texas A&M all the way up until midway through the third quarter. You lost to a USC team that is struggling at this point, just benched the quarterback that beat you because of how bad he has looked in the last 4 games, and Alabama still owns your ass with a brand new head coach and a fundamental feeble bunch of problems. That is where you start to lose the fan base. It's not that you're going to go 10-3. It's not that you're going to miss the playoff again. It's number 1, Brian Kelly said, judge me in year 3. And number 2, it's Brian Kelly not being able to beat Alabama consecutively at the same level that Nick Saban was able to beat LSU. And number 3, and probably most importantly, this is a year where you had the best ahead of you, and you showed when this team is humming, it is one of the most dangerous in college football. And unfortunately, it didn't wake up against USC. It didn't wake up in the second half against Texas A&M, and it didn't wake up against an Alabama squad that just a few weeks ago got exposed at times defensively against Georgia, got exposed at times defensively against South Carolina, got exposed at times defensively against Vanderbilt, and got exposed at times against Tennessee in the second half. And they're 4 plays away from keeping this an 8-quarter shutout in back-to-back weeks against Missouri, that is ranked at this point, and LSU that's ranked at this point, which looks better for them. So, yeah, it's inexcusable. That's why it's inexcusable this year.
Hey, before we move on, I just saw something wild. You know, LSU, if Georgia beats Tennessee this week and A&M were to beat Texas A&M in like a 17 tiebreaker, y'all know LSU's got a really good shot to go to Atlanta. And if they won the SEC championship game, the boys get the automatic spot.
They still can do it, which is that's the most mind-boggling.
They ain't dead yet. They ain't dead yet. No, it's. I will say though again before we move on, because we got to move on. We got 4 other games to get to. Yeah, Brian Kelly's stock took a major hit last night. It did. Whether you, I mean, especially within the LSU fan base.
Yeah.
It took I mean, dude, again, the overarching theme, Dave, to what you said. Hey, listen, you lose to Bama, it is what it is. A lot of people have lost to Bama and Baton Rouge. They've lost a lot of games. To get your, I almost said a dirty word, to get your freaking ass kicked like the way they did, boy, there's some mad Cajuns this morning, buddy. There's some mad Cajuns
on LSU. Because again, that was one of the more impressive. That reminded me to give Bama their credit. And I'm out of here. I'm not saying any more about this game. It just reminded me 2015 Georgia game where you went to someone else's crib and it was raining in that.
Walk in your trap and take over your trap.
Dude, Bama didn't even really celebrate, which is kind of the scary thing. It was just kind of like, oh, we came here kind of like serial killers and just. I mean, dude, the place was empty in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. What's that?
I'll say this real fast, then we move on. Bama Nation, you owe him an apology. If you doubted, you owe him an apology. That was the most dominant win we have seen in probably the last 3 years. And it was by Kalen DeBoer, who lost to Vandy. Most dominant win. Apologize.
Guys, speaking of dominant wins, let's go to this game in Austin, Texas. Hook 'em, the Texas Longhorns. Yeah, Florida, keeping Billy is a really good idea. 49-17. It was 35-0 at half. Dude, this was, guys, I'll just say this. I don't really feel like I actually heard you guys on the reaction. You're like, there's not a lot we really need to say here. But what I will say is, talked about it all week. This is the kind of performance, if you're Texas coming out of the bye week, you needed to have, right? Like everything that happened is what you wanted to see, needed to see. Quinn Ewers in his bag all day, 19-27. 333, 5 touchdowns. You ran for over 200 yards. I mean, you obviously as soon as it was announced Aiden Warner was starting, you knew. I was like, well, Florida plus 21.5 was the worst bet I made all weekend.
Yeah.
And certainly it proved to be that. Dominating win, guys, for the Horns. I mean, again, they offensively, defensively, special teams across the board, just dominated this football game. And, I look at it twofold because Cole and I talked about this. This is why you make the decision when you do about Billy Napier returning next year, because it's like, what's coming down the pipe. But also I'm like, maybe this is why you don't make the decision, because what are you going to do? Get your shit rolled for 4 straight weeks and be like, it's okay, guys. We still have the right guy. Come on, man. Come on, man. So anyways, guys, bigger takeaway, I think Texas, again, got that win out of the bye week they needed, building that momentum. Because to me, guys, it feels like Texas at this point, they got a big one at Arkansas. Don't overlook that game. That game in Fayetteville could get weird. They're building momentum to that season finale. That's what it kind of feels like to me at this point.
I agree. Chris, to your point, I think, say what you want. I mean, I think y'all said y'all both took Florida plus 21.5.
I mean, we both picked Texas to win, but
no.
I got a little carried away. Shame on me for believing a word Billy Napier says. I got a little carried away with the thought that maybe DJ Lagway, the injury wasn't as severe. He could go. Yeah. By the time Thursday came around, I mean, I'm already locked in with
that wouldn't even me throwing a jab. I was literally just
I know. Yeah. But we both, I picked Texas to win by 21.
Yeah, because, I mean, Aiden Warner, I didn't see anybody picking Florida to have a chance in this game overall. No. You're right. Aiden Warner starting, you kind of knew what was going to happen in this game. It was, again,
But 35-0 at half, Dave. 35-0. I mean,
I thought it may be like 24-3. I didn't see Florida score a lot.
God.
But my point being, Texas is really good on defense this year. Is Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy there in the interior? No, but Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins are certainly good players. The back end's really good.
By the way, Dave, real fast, Vernon Broughton didn't even play the first half because he was at the targeting call. So that just shows you how much depth is Vanderbilt.
Yeah, you're right. No, they're good on the interior. Phenomenal kids, by the way, too. I think Alfred Collins' mom played at basketball at Texas. Good woman. But anyways, Texas's defense is what it is. And to be fair, everybody wants to just chalk it up to Florida. Me and Cole talked about it in reaction. Outside of really one bad throw early in that first quarter to Isaiah Bond that Quinn Ewers just completely missed, this was a Florida defense coming into this game, guys, that was forcing a bunch of turnovers against Georgia, against Kentucky. They had, 7 in the last 2 games? I had to look it up. It's 7 off the top of my head. And Texas's offense looked phenomenal.
You got to be giddy.
You're going to underestimate that performance and be like, Aiden Warner, backup quarterback. I'm not talking about Texas defense is good. I'm not even talking about Florida's offense. What they did against the Florida defense that was coming in with some confidence, I thought was impressive in a game they needed. I think that's kind of getting underlooked. I thought Sark's 4th and 1 call when it was 0-0 on his own 20 was a phenomenal play call. It's like I saw some people arguing on Twitter about it.
Good. I'm okay.
Dude, Florida's offense couldn't do anything. You trusted your defense. At worst, you may hold them to a field goal. It changed the whole game. To Chris's point, they got up 35-0 real quick. But yeah, to your point, because there's not a lot to add from this. I would just say I was very impressed with the Texas offense. If you just get away from the surface level, it was Aiden Warner. That's what they went. No, Texas's offense against the defense that had came in playing well against other teams in this league had probably their best performance of the year, in my opinion.
So real fast, people want to complain about Quinn Ewers with the deep ball and with the inconsistencies of extending plays outside the pocket. Guy connected twice with DeAndre Moore. He just dropped the ball. I mean, as much as you want to say that he's not going to be able to be consistently throwing piss missiles 45 yards down the field, you're right. He's not. You know who he is as a quarterback. But don't say he can't. Yesterday, that stat line should have been over 400 yards, and he should have had a 6 touchdown in the game. The defense is good. Everyone knew the defense is good. Now, you guys don't want to talk about Texas. I mean, you guys don't want to talk about Florida. I will. They still showed up. They did. As much as you want to say that they didn't show up, no, they did. They played as much as possible in a game where now we're starting to realize Georgia has its faults, and Texas just didn't show up in Austin that evening because if they did, I think that we would have seen a completely different outlook because they've now shown the struggles against Mississippi State. They've shown the struggles against Auburn. They've shown the struggles against Florida. So there's faults there. They still showed up.
They just don't have a full deck, Cole. That's the biggest thing.
It was a third-string quarterback. No Montreal.
People don't understand is when they go offensive game, when they go game plan, Aiden Warner doesn't know everything. He ain't got enough reps. We saw it yesterday on one snap. No, when they were running outside zone, if there's one guy that's wrong, he's probably the wrong one, not the other 10 guys. I mean, all 10 guys are wrong together. But
he was the guy at Yale not expecting.
You can only go so far in your bag until Pete Kwiatkowski, the Texas defense coordinator, is like, all right, you're throwing every first down and you're running on every second down if you don't get anything on first down. And to be fair to Billy and them, I thought called a great game against Georgia. To Cole's point, like Florida wasn't. I mean, it is what it is, dude. I mean, nobody's going to go win with third string quarterbacks. And again, before anyone throws in Cardell Jones in the comments with Ohio State, there's an exception to every.
You think Aiden Warner's Cardell Jones? We need to have a separate convo.
But at the same time, I mean, like, what else do you want to say? And by the way, the reason why they threw out the statement was because they kind of figured, hey, this could be a possibility. Down the stretch, we get embarrassed by Florida. I mean, by LSU. We get embarrassed by Texas. We get embarrassed by Ole Miss. And somehow we come out
to Florida State, guys.
Unfortunately,
that's what I'm saying. Like, if you lose 4 it's like, come on, man.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. They released a statement. So now you got to keep them. Now you have to, because there's so many other things that go into this. Let's start off with the first one. Number one, they don't have a school president. They don't have a president that can do the firing on Scott Strickland. So that's it. Number two, the goal for every new coach that comes on in is for them to have better expectations and goals than the previous staff. It's the same schedule. And I'm not saying that you're going to have the same overall rosters. We're going to see regression from Miami. We're going to maybe not see anything with Florida State. Who knows what Ole Miss is going to be next year? Who knows what LSU is going to be next year? Who knows what Mississippi State is going to be next year? Texas is going to be next year. Nobody knows any of these things. But it still is the same schedule. The only thing that you're switching is no more UCF and games that were played at the crib. Now you get to go travel to their vicinity. That's it. That's the only difference. So when you go ahead and put pressure on a Lane Kiffin or a Marcus Freeman or a Kirk Cignetti to come on in, you're expecting instantaneous results, and that may not happen. And you just paid $20+ million on a buyout for him and his entire staff that could have been allocated towards recruiting, could have been allocated towards the transfer portal.
Shoot, no one's talking about it. It's the revenue sharing coming. They got to come up with $20 million to pay their athletics department.
And so when you have that type of money, invest in it. That's where you're at. The bottom line is that Billy Napier is back next year. It is what it is. It truly is. But here's the thing that Florida fans, and more importantly, the Florida boosters need to realize. You got to open up the checkbook. Stay with me for a minute. You compare yourself all the time that you're a premier program. We've agreed with that. We've said on multiple occasions. You look at the Spurrier era, you look at the Urban Meyer era, and then what didn't work for Jim McElwain, what didn't work for Will Muschamp, what didn't work for Dan Mullen, to where you fired coaches and you said, we got to go start fresh. That's because you hold yourself to a higher standard. You want to compare yourself to Alabama. You want to compare yourself to Georgia. You want to compare yourself to LSU. Now Tennessee is starting to gain momentum. You want to compare yourself to Texas. They've come on into the SEC and said, knock, knock, who's there? Oh, we're a competitive roster. So time to up the ante. If Billy's the guy, Billy's the guy. That does not change the fact that you have to open up the paybook. I mean, the paycheck, and you have to write him a blank page. Here you go.
You gotta take all that money, Cole, you were gonna put towards his buyout and put it to NIL. That's what you got to do. You don't have a choice.
Here's the problem. If you say, well, we need to see more wins. Well, we need to see more on-field goals. We need to see this. You've already shot yourself in the foot, and Billy's just there to kind of take some air away. Yeah, the buyout is less, but it doesn't change anything. And by the way, you can put addendums in the contract or in the negotiations when it comes to writing him a check. You have to hire a new offensive coordinator. You are not allowed to call plays anymore. You have to hire X, Y, and Z on the defensive staff. You have to bring in this recruit, these type of recruits. You have to go top 50 in scoring defense. You have to go top 75 in passing offense. Things like that have to be added in.
Yeah, I don't think that's
here's what I'd say. Here's what I'd say.
He wins 10 games and finishes 50.
Yeah, here's what I'd say, Cole. Though, if you're putting up that much red tape.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And nobody's going to say if you don't sign Cole Thompson, you're fired.
Which is what that's what they call it in the football. And I know Dave will probably know red tape. I've heard about red tape a lot.
To Cole's point,
you should just go get another guy. Like at that point,
I'll say this: they may force him to go hire an offensive coordinator.
They have to.
Definitely true. Them putting statistics in his new stuff. Or you got to go sign 3 5-stars from Miami.
Okay, well
we're not doing that.
Let's go.
I think I get Cole's overarching point.
You have to have an allocation to say 25 transfer portals players need to come in. Like that's what I'm saying. Your emphasis has to be on.
My point being, administration doesn't know how to build rosters. I might to that you might as well fire him if you're trying to make those decisions. Is my point. Again, you can force him to make an OC hire. I agree with that. You
can force him to fire people on his staff.
But you telling him what to do on roster stuff, that's like Jerry Jones getting involved with the Cowboys. Like,
but what I'm saying
you might as well you might as well fire him. Take
But
away
what
his.
I'm saying is that they have to invest if you want to be alongside.
No, Cole, I agree. They got to invest roster personnel wise, money wise, but they're not going to put stipulations in his contract about where he finishes top 50 in total defense.
No, but what I'm saying is that at the same time, if you want to compare yourself to those of the finest in the SEC, start acting like it. Because right now, South Carolina is in a better situation than you are. Right now, Missouri's in a better situation than you are. You can make a case that over the last decade, Kentucky has been more consistent than you have outside
Tennessee's in a better situation.
Tennessee's in a better situation.
Yeah.
Alabama's in a better situation. Texas is now in the mix.
Yes.
Ole Miss is in a better situation. Who knows what we're going to see in a year from now with what comes down to the roster in Starkville. The only positive I can say right now when it comes to keeping Billy is, number one, most of your NIL funds are in your freshman and sophomore class. Your young underclassmen that are going to grow this offseason, they're the ones that you're building your roster around. And number two, you have the money in the NIL and in the revenue sharing space to take those allocation funds and put it towards recruiting and put it towards the transfer portal instead of a buyout. Those are the only two positives that I can say. I understand the reason why you're keeping Billy Napier, but at this point, you can't allow that performance on Saturday to be the deciding factor. Yeah. Nope, he already released a statement. We got to fire him still. You can't do that.
No, that's an unorganized athletics department if you're doing that. Yeah. No, you're keeping him 100%. I think it's a financially mature decision, honestly, with what's coming down the chute. Yeah. Again, we don't talk about the revenue sharing stuff coming up that they got to take on.
Yeah. In closing, guys, again, back to that, the Texas side, I'm giddy if I'm a fan of the Longhorns over what I saw from Quinn Ewers. I think that's, and again, just the way that whole operation.
That's, if you're a Texas fan, you just made a great point.
Yeah.
Coming off the bye week where you had struggled on the offensive line the past two games against Georgia and Vanderbilt, you wanted to see that improvement.
That was just coming out of the bye. That was like winning would have been fine. Like the way you won it, Vandy, it was fine. But Texas coming out of the bye needed to come out and punch somebody in the face. Like they did.
There's some faultiness to the team, but it's not enough to where you doubt them as a college football playoff contender. Let's just go with that.
I think they got as good a shot as anybody, guys. Let's go to the game that took place in Nashville. Congratulations to the South Carolina Gamecocks, who are now bowl eligible.
Did South Carolina wear their bowl eligible stuff like Missouri did, or no?
I didn't see.
Remember drinking them?
Congratulations. Yeah.
Let's go.
I don't know if they were.
If only the chick in the Gamecock could have been there. Sir Big Cock.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was
Big Spur. Sir Big Spur. We say that name right.
Sir Big Spur for what?
Sir Big Spur.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I didn't know that either. Actually,
I had no idea. But
I don't even know why you.
No, I did not. Beamer was not. Yeah, they give out those like bowl eligible T-shirts. I know Drink was rocking one earlier in the year. I did not see anybody rocking those. Guys, the game kind of went like how I thought it would. I mean, listen, I love Diego Pavia. I love Vandy. The people are great, but you just felt like with Carolina's front seven coming in, like I'll tell you this, I give so much credit to Travian Robertson on the defensive side, defensive line coach, Sean Elliott on the offensive side, tight ends coach, but I think he's probably working some with O-line, offensive line guy, and Luke Day, the strength and conditioning coach. Like, they have changed this team from the standpoint of physicality. South Carolina is whipping people up front, and I really felt like that front seven with Kennard, Stewart, the entire gang, obviously, Debo Williams at linebacker. I just felt like and to your point, Dave, we made this point a lot, like more and more and more tape of the Vandy offense is getting out. As much as I love it.
Those coordinators talk.
With that front seven South Carolina's got, I was like, and what, we didn't know exactly what the status of Pavia was going to be, but I just felt like it's going to be really tough for Vandy to do anything they want to do. And then offensively, man, give South Carolina a lot of credit. Lenora Sellers was really efficient, 14 of 20, 238, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Rocket Sanders, every penny they gave him. Yeah, every penny they gave him in NIL was worth it. 15 for 126, 2 touchdowns. Again, they were physical offensively, 214 rushing yards. Lenora Sellers played the perfect game from the standpoint of, again, just be efficient, get the football to your playmakers. And, guys, again, here's the thing. We're already in the final month, but going into the final stretch, you could say there's not a team hotter than South Carolina right now, the way they're playing on both sides of the football. And, again, it starts physicality. South Carolina for years has had playmakers, guys. They've had athletes. But this year, the difference to me, they are physical. And I have not seen a South Carolina team be this physical, guys, probably since like 2014. Maybe 2013, because 2014, the defense was super soft. 13 was the last time I really recall where I'm like, They're really physical on both sides. I mean, heck, you got a guy in Kennard that's, I think, like 3 sacks away from tying Clowney's single-season record, which is crazy.
Chris, you can go back to 12 probably.
I think it's 12.
13 was the last 11-2 year. They were very physical on both sides. That was Connor Shaw's last year.
Yeah.
Again, 14 was Dylan Thompson, Mike Davis, the running back. They were really good offense. Defense was terrible. They lost all those guys on defense. The defensive line was not very good. So, again, they didn't – that's why I went to 13. But the point being, give Travian Robertson, the D-line coach, Sean Elliott, the tight ends coach. I think he's also working with O-line. Give him a lot of credit. Give Luke Day strength and conditioning. The injuries that had killed them in years past, they're not doing so. And, again, they just look like a completely different football team from the physicality standpoint in my mind.
No, you're right. And that's some of the tough breaks South Carolina has gotten in the past is the injury. Like
they're not banged up like they've been in years. I mean, give Luke Day. Luke Day caught a lot of shit end of last year. Give him a lot of credit.
It usually looks like a mash unit on that offensive line unit by week 4.
Yeah.
Like traditionally sure. No, you're right. And again, sometimes the injury, but again, coaches get this bad rap sometimes where it's like, if you go look at some of these team seasons, injuries had a big play. I mean, look at Missouri last year. They didn't have a single offensive lineman miss a game. They're having some injury luck this week. But no, you're right. Starts up front. Phenomenal game plan again by Clayton White. I think if everybody would just go follow DJ Durkin's game plan he put out on paper from Auburn last week against Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt's going to be shut down here, I think, here. They need a bye week. They're going into it. Lenore Sellers, I feel like, is what you wanted. I mean, good Lord. I mean, that kid has developed a lot this year. I'll give him a lot of credit, improved. I still don't think the South Carolina wide receiver unit's great, but you know who does make it a lot better is Lenore Sellers. Lenore Sellers makes it a lot. Well, Josh Simon's the tight end, but
I'm saying he makes it a lot better.
Yeah, he does.
No, but I'm saying from a Lenore Sellers, when he scrambles and makes plays, that makes everybody else better. And that's what he's doing from a standpoint. He's what you thought Anthony Richardson would be. Like you see plays from him that you've not. I feel like in college I never saw Anthony Richardson make, and that's who the comp is. I've always kind of compared Lenore Sellers to, but no, starts up front on defense, dominating, was a fantastic matchup heading in against Vanderbilt. So you got to give South Carolina their flowers heading into 6 wins. Real shot with getting 9, most likely 8 now.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care. I'm just gonna say it. South Carolina's a top 15 team in college football. They're playing like it. They're acting like it. And if you honestly look at the way they've performed, they are a Nicky Manwari interception away. And I will throw this in. I believe it was a wrong call. I do. But still, they blew a 17-point lead, so we got to add that in. But they are that away from being in the college football playoff hunt this year. And that's testament to Shane Beamer that nobody is giving credit to. And I will, because you want to know why? They have embraced the fit that is the coach, the underdog mentality, the no nonsense. We don't care what the number is attached to our name. We don't care what the number is attached to the other opponent's name. We're going to go out and we're going to show you why we are the best version of the team that it takes the field every single Saturday. They can beat Clemson. They can easily beat Clemson. They can beat Missouri. They can easily beat Missouri. They will beat Wofford. 9-3 is on the horizon. You are watching this team finally show what the culmination of years building up with. The Lenore Sellers, 100%. If he plays in that second half against LSU, what are we talking about? This is a completely different outlook. Rocket Sanders, fully healthy. This is the version that we want to see when he came to Columbia after 2 dominant years during his time in Fayetteville. They have great tight end play. I agree with Dave. One of the biggest issues that they're going to have to fix this offseason is adding in some premier wide receiver talent, but that defense is fierce. It's potent. They can win in pass coverage. They can win with blitzes. They can win with tackles for losses. They're filling in spaces. They have done a great job of not allowing teams to find a way to break away and get the explosive plays. Diego Pavia yesterday, what was the key element? They needed to find a way to still live in 3rd and short, 3rd and manageable. They were in 3rd and long the entire afternoon. And when Lenore Sellers had a fumble, who embraced that next play? Kyle Kennard, big-time NIL recruit coming on in via the portal, bits the ball back. Congratulations. It's not a turnover. You don't end up capitalizing on points. Momentum swings back to your side. You do everything that you need to still show why you are a team that is hitting its stride at the right time. It's a little too late, but unfortunately, we can call this a spade a spade. Be completely real, guys. They have looked awful in 1 game this year. 1 game in a win. Now, the Old Dominion game, again, we can throw that away. First game of the year, they got to win. But in a loss, they have looked awful in 1 game. 14-0 against Ole Miss. They were in the Alabama game. They were in the game against LSU. They were in the game every other win that they've had this year. You can't doubt it. There's a very real option to where they could be sitting at 8-1 right now. There is. They're 6-3. They are 6-3. We have to say it. But they have shown you that they are much better. When Shane Beamer said at the start of the year in Dallas, hey, you know what? Go ahead and put us at the 11th spot. Go ahead and put us at the 12th spot. People believed it, and there was a reason they believed it. You want to know why? Because of people thought that Auburn was in a much better spot. They thought that after all the moves that were made this past offseason, Florida was in a better spot. That you were going to see Kentucky in a better spot. They are bowl eligible before all of them. Shane Beamer's allowed to kind of have his moment in the sun. And I think that they have found the right coach. He is the epitome of what is needed at South Carolina. Now, this offseason, go ahead and be like Ole Miss. Add in those right transfers and go swing big.
Yeah, I mean, I was asked, guys, beginning of the season or early season about, do you think Shane Beamer's the right fit at South Carolina? I'm like,
Perfect fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, this is a zero-sum game, right? It's wins and losses. We get that. I mean, it is what it is. But as far as fit, like just he's the perfect fit. There's nobody that fits South Carolina more than Beamer. I mean, he's the epitome of, to your point, because South Carolina, that place again, it is a very chip on the shoulder underdog. We're gonna prove to you that, and I mean, Beamer carries that. And again, I think it's great for South Carolina. I think it's perfect. Like again, we talk about culture fits all the time in college football. I don't think there is a better fit for the University of South Carolina than Shane Beamer. So again, I mentioned this weeks ago. I'll mention it again. Give them a lot of credit for going out and getting the talent necessary. They flat out upgraded their defensive personnel via a freshman in Dylan Stewart, via Kyle Kennard and Demetrius Knight. They retained their talent and guys like Eamon Worry and Debo Williams and Tonka Hemingway, and it paid off major dividends again. And then they added in those assistants. I know this is Travion Robertson's second year, but they brought in Sean Elliott, and it just, again, the identity of the program, I think, has shifted in a year in regards to this physicality we're seeing. And I mean, to your point, Cole, I think very realistically, they could finish 9-3. I mean, I'll tell you this, because we're about to segue into this game. We talk about the best blank and blank team in the country, and I'm talking record. You could argue South Carolina is the best 6-3 team in the country. I don't have a list of all of them, but no, they got to be one of the best at least. And I'll tell you this. If they're not ranked, I know Shane Beamer said he doesn't care, continue to crap on us. But if they're not ranked in the top 25, something is terribly wrong. At this point, it's absurd if they're not ranked.
Not even in, for me, the AP poll in the college football playoff.
Well, that's the one I'm really talking about. That's the one that matters.
That's the one that matters now. AP poll, I don't know why people get all over it.
It'll be dumb if they're not ranked in the AP either, but they certainly should be in the playoff ranking.
Let's be honest, guys. I think Vanderbilt's going to drop out this week. That's who
yeah.
But there are not 15 teams right now in college football I would want to play over South Carolina. There aren't.
Yeah, right.
And when you have that, you are 100% a top 25.
I'd much rather play SMU than South Carolina.
I would much rather play Texas A&M right now than South Carolina. I would much rather play LSU. I would much rather play Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado. There's so many teams I would much rather play. Boise State with the running back and Nash and Genty. No, 100%. So many more teams. My top 25 is coming out today. South Carolina's 14. I'm just going to lay that out there. I don't care. I don't care. There are not 15 teams better than South Carolina right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, we, just sound like a broken record, Cole, and as we move off this game, we've talked about it a lot. Everybody talks about Cocktober, but, man, I try to tell you, it's November when they really do their damage. Shane Beamer has a knack for it. It's a great knack that he gets his team playing their best football end of season. Now, we'll see if that carries throughout. There's, some big opportunities. You got to take care of you. I say you got to take care of your business against Missouri at home, because I would be really surprised at this point if South Carolina's not favored in that football game. You're going to beat Wofford and then Clemson on the road, rivalry game, flip a coin. Clemson's got their own issues, so you feel good about that one. So it certainly sets up, man, for a hell of a year 4 for Beamer and a signature year 4. And again, I think I go back to just, again, flipping the identity of the program, bringing that the physicality that we're seeing from them week in, week out is, and again, that's why I felt so good in this Vandy matchup. So, and moving forward. Dave, you got anything else on the game? You good? You want to move on? We're good? All right, let's go to the game. Speaking of, like I said, South Carolina, you could argue, best 6-3 team in the country. Cole, I know you like MIZ, but they're the worst 7-2 team in college football. They are. They get the win. And Oklahoma, you got beat by Drew Pyne. I love the OU folks. I really do. I have nothing good to say about you today.
No,
I have nothing good.
You know they should be mad about.
As someone who bet Oklahoma, I have nothing good to say to you or about you. And I know you probably will accept that because it is what it is. But, and then again, the wackiness of the last 3 minutes.
Yeah. That game was wild. No, if there's anybody that should be pissed off right now, and the fans should be pissed off, it's probably Joe Castiglione, the Oklahoma AD, probably made the worst decision in his 25 years as the Oklahoma AD in giving, I've never even heard of it in college football, giving someone a contract extension in July, 6 months after the prior season just ended. Again, I don't think you get rid of him this year because I don't think you can. I got the numbers pulled. $44.8 million is what you owe him right now, and you can't. You look like an idiot. You literally just gave him a raise for 5 months.
These agents are such legends, dude. They're such legends.
And, but specifically to the game, it's just Oklahoma's defense didn't help them either. Again, point wise, yeah. They played well enough to win, certainly. But again, it's the leadership of the team on defense, Billy Bowman and them, who he played well. But you gave up a game-time touchdown within 57 seconds, man. That can't happen. Jackson Arnold continues to not play well. Joe John Finley and them didn't have a good game plan. You let Drew Pyne throw for 3 touchdowns. Again, numbers-wise, it wasn't terrible. It was just almost like in situations you had to get a stop that you're like, yeah, we feel really comfortable in this. They couldn't get a stop defensively. When you couldn't turn it over, they turned it over. This reminds me of the John Blake Oklahoma era, from 96 to 98, maybe 98 to 2000. I forget, right before Stoops got there. This is the worst season, probably since 1998 when I was looking it up this morning for Oklahoma fans. They're probably not going to go to a bowl. Let's be honest, guys. Bye week, they're going to be hearing for 2 weeks how bad they suck at Oklahoma City sports radio. People are moving on to the Thunder season right now.
Or basketball season.
Yeah, no, I don't know how great they'll be there then. So these people probably stick with the Thunder. Sorry, Oklahoma fans, but maybe no baseball season. But they have 2 weeks to hear that. Then you play Alabama and at LSU. Maybe LSU's checked out. But again, I don't know how you score enough to go beat them either. It's 5-7 your first year. And an even worse stat, 1-7 is what you're probably going to finish in your first SEC season as an SEC, is your record in the SEC. I know me and Cole have talked about it on a lot of these reactions. 2 things can be true at once. Yes, you were snake bit more than I remember any team being on offense. Any team I can remember in recent history where it's like, damn, dude, yeah, that's not an excuse. That's an actual thing. But you've been hurt all year, and you have to be able to adjust. You see Mike Elko managing multiple quarterbacks in his first season, managing to work up a pretty decent offense. You see it each week from every coach around. Give Shane Beamer credit. Lawrence Sellers hadn't been 100%. He's had to mix in Robbie Ashford a little bit. They still won some football games. The excuse of, man, we've just been hurt. It's like, you got to put together some kind of game plan to get better. And it's just week to week, man. It's just not getting better. Last night, if I'm an Oklahoma fan, last thing I'll say, that would be the thing that's kind of, yeah, this will be the night we remember just officially Brent Venables was maybe not the guy, man.
Still 7-2. Still 7-2. And you know what? I have no room to gloat because if I sold my stock on Mizzou, I am the epitome of what is.
We all picked Oklahoma in this game. How absurd! How absurd of us!
I am the epitome of a true bandwagon fan. No, literally, I am, because here's the deal: bandwagon fans jump off right when things get tough, and I did, and that's why I can say I'm okay with it. But man, Drew Pyne, how do you let Drew Pyne beat you? I'll tell you why. Because you had 2 great catches by Luther Burden. You had a great end zone grab by Brett Norfleet. You had the toe tap grab by Theo Lee.
Oh, my gosh.
He's on the team.
That was crazy.
Everyone stepped up. Everyone stepped up and delivered in place of no Brady Cook last night. The run game wasn't there either. So Drew Pyne, when the moments had to be there, got his way into the end zone. 3 touchdown passes. As much as he threw for less than 200 yards, 3 touchdown passes. And the fact that your defense delivered once again, it's so hard to argue with. Add all that together, it's a recipe that was a winning formula in your backyard. And I want to give a huge shout out, because if he is my other Mizzou brethren, to cousin Shane, congratulations. You were there. You had a good performance. They showed you, and you were the good luck charm. Maybe I need to be the good luck charm down South Carolina or Mizzou. Who knows? We'll cross that bridge when we cross that bridge. But still,
we could just send you to Columbia, South Carolina for South Carolina Mizzou and really put you in a blender.
But what I will say is that this might have been the last performance of good luck because of how many times can you skate by? I mean, I love Mizzou. I do.
Yeah. I will say, Cole, you got as much as I was like poo-pooing on Mizzou to start this. I mean, you got to give Eli Drinkwitz's team a lot of credit. That's a gutsy, gritty win without your guy at quarterback. That's a really gutsy win. I'll give them a lot of credit for that.
I think the other thing that we have to talk about just briefly is that he is unapologetically an asshole, and I love it. Like, I know people hate him.
He tries to portray himself as this like nerd, but he's a serial killer underneath.
The fact that he is so psycho to put a blanket in Theo Weese's room for Will Lee and then say, "Oh, we're still in the college football playoff hunt." Yeah, I said it.
He took a shot at Bob Stoops last night.
The fact
I saw that was
unapologetically lethal.
Yeah. Again, we talk about great fits. I think he's a great fit at Mizzou. I really do.
Oh, 100%.
He's an edge, yeah. It keeps getting talked about. Yeah, you're right.
I also want to give a huge shout out to Corey Batoon. I think a lot of people sold their stock on Mizzou being anything this year, and certainly regression has set in because they lost Blake Baker, because they lost so much of the personnel. Yet Corey Batoon has kept this defense afloat, has put them in great situations to walk away with wins. And the reason they won last night was because of they got a big-time score from a scoop and score, 30-yard return from Young. And Young said even post-game, I've been a part of 6-win programs my entire life. I just want to win football games. And they did. And because of that, now there is a shot for them to still go 10-2. I don't think it happens if Drew Pyne is your starting quarterback. I don't. I'm going to be real. Again, here's the bandwagon guy hopping off the express, not riding with them. But we can call a spade a spade. I don't know if you can beat up against that defense in South Carolina. I don't know what to expect when you play Arkansas. I don't know what to expect down the stretch. I don't. But 10-2 is still on the horizon. Whether or not we agree that they are a good 10-2 win team, whether or not we agree that they belong in 10-2, their defense is delivered and their offense has stepped up at times. If you get a good run game back, if you get Brady Cook back, 10-2 is on the horizon. It still is possible.
It's on the horizon. I'm gonna push back. It's on the horizon mathematically. I don't think
it still is possible. Legitimately is still as possible.
Florida can still get a bowl too, but yeah,
a lot of things are still possible.
A lot of things are, Matt. That's the beauty of college football.
No, to y'all's credit, last night was a gutsy win. You somehow gutted it out. Yeah. I'm with Cole. I mean, I don't think you're going to beat South Carolina. Arkansas is another game. It's a hell. If they go to Mississippi State and play bad with Drew Pyne, I'm telling you, Mississippi State just could get. I mean, those guys are seething at the teeth just to get one.
They just want one
conference win. That's a dangerous game for Missouri. But you're right. I'm just messing with you, Cole, busting your balls. I know you're not saying they're 10-2, but no, I mean, give them credit. Last night, I didn't think they won that game.
They're trying to kick me out of the hotel. I got the late checkout. They're trying to kick me out. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
No, I was good on this game.
No, you're good. You're good. Now, anyways, gutsy win again. They're coming in. You out yet? No, I'm not quite. I got the late checkout though. They must not get the memo.
Can we talk about Tennessee? Because I have no idea.
Yeah. We're gonna close out with that. Big storyline from this one. Dylan Sampson's still a stud. Nico iamaleava leaves the game with the upper body injury. Should be okay though. And I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't see a ton of this one. If I'm being totally transparent, Nico looked really good early though. I mean, some downfield shots. What you want to see again? What do y'all think? More precautionary than anything? More precautionary
post game.
Yeah, I mean, you got Georgia upcoming. You know you can beat State without Nico. I mean, it's something to definitely monitor. But I tell you, Dave, the big thing too. You mentioned this. Is there any sort of load management? Bro, 30 more carries for Dylan Sampson.
Dude, that's what we're
riding him, dude.
His frame is not, dude. If you've ever stood next to that kid in person. He's not an overly just big kid. That's
he's not a Jaquindon Jackson.
Well, he may have surpassed our boy Ashton Genty last night. Again, you can't keep wearing that kid down, and then you add in you have extra games this year. You got to kind of start lighting the load. I mean, it's probably not going to be next week though.
It's not going to be next week though.
You're going to have all your guns ablazing. Yeah. I mean, UTEP maybe, and depending on what's going on with Vanderbilt at that point. But I don't know. You got to figure out a number 2 back. Yeah, I don't know. Heupel likes to ride him. But, dude, at some point, you're going to burn that kid out. He's going to get banged up. It's not his fault. I mean, I don't think anybody can take that load right now.
I will say the one thing that you can give a lot of credit to now, especially, they have healthiness at wide receiver. Get back Dante Thornton, you get back Squirrel White, both finished with the touchdown reception yesterday. Both averaged over 21 yards per play. Chris Brazel had 2 catches. Brew McCoy had 2 catches. Miles Kitselman had a catch. So the offense still has the pieces. The defense is doing its job to where this is going to be, I think, a very, very physical upfront battle between Georgia and Tennessee. But again, if Tennessee wins, the thing that we all kind of forget about right now.
Here it is. Cole brought it up. I'm asking y'all. It just came out. Just saw it. What do y'all think the line is? It just came out.
2.5. 2.5.
Georgia minus. Georgia favored by 4.5.
9.5.
Georgia?
What?
They're giving Tennessee 9.5.
All right. Well,
God.
that's an easy bet.
Yo.
That's an easy bet.
What?
That is.
Dude, I knew.
Come on, man. Holy shit. Who is.
That's according to
we got to get on the preview. We got to get on the preview now. Who are they?
Here's
double digits better.
You're laughing at that one. DraftKings 9.5. FanDuel 11.5.
Who is Georgia double digits better than anybody right now? Does that scream they just don't know about Nico? Like
Cole looks like he's about to make. Guys, I got to cut this. I got to go put my bed in
crazy.
Real fast.
I need to go jump into the freaking lake because I'm that fucking pissed off. I mean, my God, man, what are we doing? No, listen, I get it. I completely get it that you believe that Georgia is still Georgia. I get it. But drugs, absolute drugs are made in this pick. Absolutely. There is no second guess about it. How dare you disrespect this defensive front? I'm not even mad about the Nico thing. I'm mad about the defense. The defense has played phenomenal this year. Yeah, they allowed 2 rushing touchdowns yesterday. They also held Michael Van Buren to 92 passing yards. So again, when you look, let's go back and do this again. When you look at this game, we've had questions all year. Can you play 4 quarters of consistent football? The defense, the secondary that people have had questions about, I haven't since the NC. I really haven't since the Oklahoma game, but the defense people have had questions about. Secondary stepped on up. The run defense gave up a few explosive plays. Who cares? Who cares? You're seeing both sides deliver at times. 9?
11.5, Cole. Get on your boy.
Can't jump on that. Listen, we can't jump on that preview fast enough. That's crazy.
Oh my God.
Crazy. What? That's crazy.
Well, no matter what, I'm taking Tennessee with the points. Like that's
right.
Death tax is an easy one.
Yeah, I mean, clip this if you must, if we're wrong. But my God, that seems like a lot.
Here's the other thing that I want to just throw out real fast that people are kind of forgetting. If Tennessee wins and they close out the year with a win against Vanderbilt, they also are 11-1, and if we are blessed enough to get this, we'll see UT take on UT down in the SEC championship for bragging rights for who is the real UT. Just throwing that out there. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. That number's got to come down this week. Again, impressive win by Tennessee, guys. In closing, I got to get out of here. They're going to kick me out of this freaking hotel room. They want me to get out of the Magnolia State. They said, you've overstayed. You're welcome. Again, impressive by Tennessee. What we expected. The defense, to your point, to hold a Jeff Lebby offense, Jeff Lebby quarterback to less than 100 passing yards. Impressive. Defense was really good. And again, Dylan Sampson, I just hope he can make it to the playoff, man. Assuming they get there. I hope he can make it through because, again, he's a workhorse, man. He's a workhorse. There's no question. They are riding that thing till the wheels fall off. So we'll see. We'll see. So anyways, guys, hell of a job, man. Hell of a weekend. Week 11's in the books. Again, thank you all so much, man. Over 1,200 folks chiming in live to these us three blabbering idiots here on this Sunday morning. Love that. Dave and Cole, it's always a pleasure, man. Again, we got a jam-packed week upcoming. A lot of games to get into. Really exciting stuff as we continue throughout the college football season. We'll be live again, by the way, on Tuesday night as we react to the college football playoff rankings, just like we did last week. And again, just stay tuned. Dave will go live on Monday and Thursday. Dave talks ball. We're all over the place. You know the drill at this point. So again, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get those social media channels. You know where to find us at SEC Unfiltered. And of course, our website, secunfiltered.com. Again, fellas, appreciate y'all. For Dave Shumate and Cole Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.